Welcome back to Studio 1, where my guest today is Member of Parliament Yasirnaqvi and Omar Al Ghabra, the candidate for Federal Parliament from Mississauga, Arundel. And before I go on with questions to both my guests today, I wanted to mention here that we have repeatedly, I don't want it to show like a liberal convention, and because both my guests today are liberals, but we have invited the conservative candidates a number of times, and none of them has committed so far to appear on Studio 1. But again, let's extend this invitation to any conservative candidate who wants to appear on the show, and we will be more than happy to have them. So Omar, my first question is to you. This is your third election. Your first election was 2006, where you won. Your 2008, where you lost, and this is 2011, your third election. What have you learned so far, and what do you see different this year?
I have learned a lot, to say the least. And I learned a lot, frankly, from the defeat, a lot more than I learned from victory. And I'm a better person because of it. Election is a fascinating and an exhilarating exercise. It really is all about Canadians, it's about the voters, it's about talking to people, making sure that you focus on their issues and concerns. And I was blessed and fortunate to have been elected in 2006 by a decent majority. And then in 2008, unfortunately, the margin was very, very small. It was 0.7%. Just 300 and change, right? Just over 300 votes. And it was a surprise. It was not expected. But you know what? You reflect on what happens, you learn from the lessons that you have, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, remind yourself of why you're doing this, and keep working at it. And I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to run again. I'm fortunate to have the opportunity to represent the people of Mississauga, Arundel again, and I'm having fun. Excellent, good for you. Now, you talked about reflecting back, and you talked about learning more from your experiences of defeat, more than you learned from the victory. We'll come back to that, but before that, I wanted to ask Yasir a question here. The first election that you contested, you won.
Yes.
I'm
hoping to win the second one too.
which is not really very far away, which is probably 6th of October this year?
Yes.
So how are you preparing for that?
Well, I think it comes down to serving your community, not losing the focus to why you were elected. I represent a downtown community in Ottawa, the riding of Ottawa Centre. So my riding has unique challenges like public transit, affordable housing, and every day in and out, those are the kind of issues that I'm focused on. I do my utmost best to be in my home at my riding most of the days. I'm in Toronto because of the legislature, 3 days out of the 7, the rest of the time in my riding. And it's by listening to the people, by making sure that the community's wants, needs, and desires are being paid attention to and trying to get those results, I think helps you for the community say, you know what, Yasir's done a good job, we will give him another opportunity to represent us. So that's what my hope is, and that's what I'm working on.
Right. Now you are the president of the Ontario Liberal Party. So there are two Liberal parties, Ontario Liberal Party and the Federal Liberal Party, and my question again goes to you, Yasir, for the benefit of our viewers, please explain the difference between the Ontario Liberal Party and the Federal Liberal Party, because people sometimes do get confused, especially the new immigrants. They don't know who to vote for, and they don't know who is the candidate for this election. Well, obviously they know this is Omar Al Ghabra for federal election, but how to distinguish and what is the difference between the two parties?
Well, first and foremost, we are liberals. So we always like to say that Omar and I are cousins.
Okay.
Right? Liberal Party of Canada is our federal cousin, and we are the provincial party, the Ontario Liberal Party. So our values, first and foremost, are very much aligned. We believe in equality, we believe in fiscal responsibility, we believe in making sure equal opportunities are available to all Canadians, to all Ontarians, regardless of their socioeconomic status, their ethnicity. We believe very much in ensuring that those who are vulnerable in our communities have opportunities that are provided to them. So socially progressive ideas, is that something we believe on. As political entities, we are two separate organizations. Liberal Party of Canada is a separate organization than Ontario Liberal Party. The reason also is because of the laws. You know, we always have to follow the strict letter of the law. So the Ontario Liberal Party comes under the scope of the Ontario Elections Act, whereas the Liberal Party of Canada comes under the scope of Canada Elections Act, and those rules may differ somewhat slightly.
Okay, I think that was very useful at this stage, because people can now understand exactly when we are talking, they will know exactly what context we are talking in. So let me come back to you, Omar. Let's talk a little bit about, you are hopeful that you're going to win, obviously.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Now, what steps are you taking towards achieving that objective?
Well, first, I worked very hard on two levels over the last couple of years. On one level is maintaining connection with my constituents. So I actually never stopped canvassing. I constantly held town hall meetings. In fact, if you compare the number of town halls meetings I held to my opponent, who was the incumbent, I think I did 3 times the number of town halls meetings that he had. So I continually worked at the constituent level. At the second fold, I worked within the party, making sure that our platform is responsive to what I have been hearing from my constituents. And this time, the platform is totally different than it was last time. Not that I'm saying that the last platform was a bad platform, but we had an issue, if you remember, the green shift, where with the carbon tax component, that people were not willing to go in that direction. This time, our platform is focusing on, I think, fundamental issues that Canadians deeply care about: healthcare, education, pension, immigration reforms, and daycare, and affordable housing. So those are the 3 or 5 major components that are within our platform. I'm very proud of the platform. I've worked very hard with our team to make sure that it's responsive to Canadians' needs, particularly after this recession that placed a lot of pressure on Canadian families.
Right. We'll talk about the platform in a moment when we come back after the break. But before we go into the break, I wanted to ask you something else, and that was your scorecard, the Liberal scorecard,
sure.
And especially Liberal scorecard on the federal level, sure. And on the provincial level as well.
Sure.
Now, last elections, you lost with 300 and change votes.
Yes.
And the turnout, we were just discussing before we started the program, that the turnout was 10% less last year than it was in 2006. So 2008 you had about 56% turnout, and 2006 you had about 66%. 66%, right?
Yep.
So 9,000 people were missing who did not vote in 2008. And there were 4,000 votes which went to the NDP candidate, which recently, by the way, has gone to Conservative and probably not contesting. So there's no candidate on the NDP seat.
No, there is a candidate.
There is a candidate,
yes,
been announced?
Replaced
okay,
him. Yep.
They have replaced him. So there's a traditional 4,000 to 5,000 votes that always go to
NDP.
The candidate from NDP, and there's probably a couple of hundred that go to the Marxist-Leninist as well.
Yeah.
So without including those, now what steps are you taking? How are you confident that you're going to regain those 385 lost votes, number one? Number two, on your personal level. But on the other hand, as a federal, on a federal level, you guys have lost, Liberals have lost a lot of seats. Between 2006, 2008, 2011, you have almost lost 50% of the seats. So in order to have a majority government, which obviously is everybody's dream, and I called that a fantasy in the beginning of the program. What steps are you taking on your personal level, and then what steps is the party taking on a federal level
sure.
to regain those seats?
Sure. Look, I mean, we're having a frank discussion here. In a democracy, you always have this political cycles. The Liberal Party had governed for 13 years in Canada, and in my opinion had done a great job governing. But what happens in a democracy, that after a while the public says perhaps it's time for a change. The mistakes appear bigger, and there are other issues. So the public, as I always say, the voter is always right. And what happened is, you end up going in the other political cycle where the other party gains popularity and your party loses popularity. But what that does is exactly what did to me when I lost. It helps us reinvigorate ourselves, incarnate ourselves, focus on our fundamental values, come back to the basics. What is it that the Liberal Party is known for? What is it that Canadians have expected out of the Liberal Party for decades? And it is the focus on families, it is the focus on healthcare, education. This is what we're known for. And this time around, we've learned a lot of lessons, and I think you go back and you get back to basics. And I'm very pleased with the outcome this time around. Our platform is fundamentally liberal, traditionally liberal, speaks to those values that Canadians expect of us. You'll see now the Conservative Party is in a lot of trouble with money scandals and convicts who worked in the Prime Minister's office and contempt of Parliament, the first time in Canada's history ever to have a government in contempt of democracy. So they're having their own problems after governing for over 5 years. We are going through a rejuvenation period. I'm very optimistic. I can't tell you, I don't want to be presumptuous about the outcome of the election, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm working on...
But you want to be optimistic, right?
Well, I'm doing my part. There are certain things I can't control, but the things that I can control, I can focus on. Getting the message out.
What about the party on a federal level?
Yes.
Do you think it's doing its job?
Absolutely.
Better than they did the last time?
Well, look, I think if anybody is watching the campaign, and I encourage anybody to take a moment every day and follow the news reports, see what the rallies and what the leaders talk about. I think the campaign, the Liberal Party's campaign so far has done an amazing job in organizing rallies and announcing the platform. Michael Ignatieff has been performing exceptionally well. The debate will be tomorrow, the leaders' debate. So I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks, and I'm very optimistic. But at the same time, got to keep focused on what I can do personally in this riding, which is getting the message out, meeting as many voters as possible, speaking to them, listening to them, and make sure that I remind everybody of the importance of voting.
It's a 5-week campaign, and we are almost halfway into it. Yes. So we've got another 2.5 weeks to wait and see. 2nd of May, voters in Canada are going to decide who will be the next one. So let's go for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching Studio 1, where my guest today is Omar Al Gabra and Yasirnaqvi, and we'll be right back.